G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and here we go with another manufacturer's series combination. I think this is round 4 at this stage here, and I find myself at the back end of second split, which is good today because of the combination and because of the car I'm driving. So of course, manufacturers, I'm in Toyota, so I'm driving the Toyota Supra. So, we go out for qualifying in what you can now see is Group 3 at Spa in the wet weather. And this is the heavy wet conditions, so absolutely bucketing down rain. It's not quite so obvious, but it is raining. There is water descending from the sky and the track is completely soaked in water. So, we're going to go out for the qualifying lap here. So I'm going to take you through a lap of Spa in the wet, in the Toyota Supra at least. So coming up towards turn 1, it's just after the fence goes sort of further to the left on the left hand side. The fence kind of turns in further over to the left hand side. It's just after that before the 100 meter board, I believe it is. And on the exit, nice and gentle on the throttle, of course. That is the key here. Gentle on the throttle, especially in the Supra. Coming up towards Eau Rouge, which is turn 2, Radeon turn 3. Just a dab of brakes in 5th gear as we go through turn 2. And just nice and careful as we head up Radeon. In 5th gear, you can oversteer on the top, so just try and keep the steering nice and straight, and then down the camel straight. 6th gear, apologies for the rushing water noise, that's just the spray. Coming in towards the chicane, just after the 150 meter board in prime conditions. If you're in slipstream or tyre wear, or you've got more tyre wear, you want to brake before it. Nice and gentle through the chicane, and then no braking for turn 7, 4th gear, short shift to 4th, heading down the hill towards the hairpin, just on the 100 meter board on the left hand side, and I choose to stay in 3rd gear, and you let the car roll just at about 77 kilometers an hour is prime speed, and really gentle on the throttle, just before the sort of flag screen marker on the right hand side. Nice and gentle through Jackie X corner. 3rd gear I decide to do, and then coming up towards Pouon, just on the right hand side there's like a drain just before the 50 meter board, braking on there, down into 4th gear, nice and gentle, about 50% throttle, even slightly less, all the way through the exit. And once the car's sort of pointing towards the curb, you can get on full power. 100 meter board for the Fugger chicane, and then coming through here, 4th gear, nice and tight for the first portion, which is turn 12. This is turn 13, nice and late apex to get a straight exit. A little bit of oversteer off there, but it's not to worry. Just before the start of the fence on the right hand side, coming in towards campus, turn 14. 3rd gear through here, gentle on the exit, only about 50% power, short shift up to 4th, and turn in for Stavilo. And then really careful on the exit. The exit continues to curve right as we head up Courbe Port Frere, so just try and keep your steering as minimal as possible. Turn 16 is flat out just about, and then Blanchimont you're braking just on the start of the tyre mark on the green AstroTurf on the right hand side on the entry to Blanchimont. 5th gear, gentle on the exit, similar fashion to Eau Rouge, and then braking just after the gantry, going overhead of the track into the bus stop chicane, marking the final 2 corners of Spa. And as we come out of the final corner, so easy to oversteer as we nearly do there, but we get through there nicely. Wheel spin, wheel spin, wheel spin, all the way up to the line. It's a 246.9. Not a bad lap, to be honest, considering the Supra, and you know, I'll talk a bit about why this car is particularly terrible and why this is so difficult, this combination for me, given the car I'm driving. Strategy for this one is nice and easy. It's a nose stop with heavy wets, but as always with the manufacturer series combinations, let's enjoy the introduction. Lovely, as always. Let's meet the cars on the grid. Let's have a look at the cars at the start of the grid. It's all MR cars. The Honda, the Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, all on the front portion of the grid. And we come back, in the back of the pack, where all the FR cars are. But let's start off here. You can see I've got traction control turned right up to 11. Well, it's actually 5, but it's actually 5, but, you know, the saying, turn it up to 11, that's what that is there. But of course, tyre wear is on. It's very minimal in the race, but it is on, so the tyres are cold at the start. I don't want to spin out. I'd rather lose a few tenths at the start with all this traction control than spin out and face the wrong way with 36 minutes left of racing to no avail if I end up spinning out before the start line. But here we go. Let's start off nice and gentle. So the Toyota Supra, why is it so bad here? This car has massive turbo boost. You might notice if you've driven this car in the dry, a lot of oversteer. It's a very oversteery car. First gear you don't touch, second gear is leery as anything, third gear is fairly stable in the dry, but it's kind of hard to explain. It just oversteers a lot more than a regular car like the Mercedes or something. And you'll know what I mean if you've driven this car. It feels a lot different, or not a lot different, but it feels pretty different to another car like the Corvette or something. You know, the Corvette, it oversteers sort of as you'd expect. If you stamp the throttle too hard, it'll oversteer. But the Supra, it's just, I don't know, it must just have a very powerful turbo or something, because it can oversteer so late in the rev range. Like, you might think you're all good, get on the power, and the car just slides out. So there's not much traction. I think that's the key here. There's not much traction in the Supra. So in the wet, where you need your traction and you need the stability, you don't have it. And that kind of extends, not to the extent of the Supra, but it extends to other FR cars as well. So the engine, so FR of course, front-engined rear-wheel drive. Engine is in the front of the car, drive sent to the rear wheels, which is the case for all Group 3 cars. But you've got the weight over the front, so you're going to have a lot of bite, a lot of turn in, which is, I suppose, okay, but the thing you're lacking is the back end grip. So with MR cars, where the engine's in the back of the car, you've got that weight sitting over the back wheels. So when you're getting onto the power in an acceleration zone, you've got the engine, or the weight of the engine, pushing the back of the car into the road, which is where the drive wheels are. So they're able to bite into the tarmac a bit better and get better traction on the exit. And it's pretty pronounced, because you might think, oh, you know, that'll only be a couple of seconds a lap. It's a lot. Top time was, I just forget what car. It was definitely an MR though. It was a 242.1 or something, or even in the EMEA, they were in the 241s. My fastest time, a 246.7 or something like that. So it just goes to show I'm pretty far off the pace, and I kind of went into this race knowing that. I saw this on the calendar and I was like, well, I'm going to give it a go. I know I'm going to be weak, so I don't really have too high expectations here, because I know that I'm inherently weak here, and there's not really much I can do except for not do the round. But I definitely wanted to jump in and give it a red hot go, which is what I've decided to do here, and I seem to be keeping my position fairly well, having started 15th with my qualifying time on this particular occasion. But if we have a look at the pair up ahead, they're kind of intertwined in a battle, and they're dropping off very quickly from the guy in 12th, who's in fact heading up Eau Rouge and Radeon right now. So there's going to be very little chance of the pair up ahead catching back up to 12th unless they make a grave error. So I think what's happening is they're holding each other up a bit, or at least the Chevrolet is being held up by Capicong in 13th. So that gives me a good opportunity, and I have the slipstream now, because they're getting held up, or the Chevrolet is getting held up. I'm able to catch up to them, and I could potentially get past them, and if I can just hold them up for the rest of the race, it's quite easily foreseeable at this stage here that 13th could be a winning position. As for my personal goals, I basically just wanted to not go backwards and just complete 13 clean laps. I can put race pace laps in of about a 247 to 248, so as long as I can get 13 laps within the realm of that, I'll probably consider this a successful round. I don't know the amount of points that could pertain to, but I think just as long as I can get a nice clean run, no incidents, and if I can at least keep my qualifying position to the end of the race, to not render this race a waste of time, I think I'll go home with that and remain happy. So this race here I was doing after work on a Saturday night. So this exact race here, its entry period started at 11 PM, and well, I don't need to tell you what happens when I race at 11 PM. But let's just try and focus. I prepared quite a bit. I did a little bit of practice on the 2 days leading up to this. So I did a couple of race runs as well, trying to sort of figure out what I can do in the Supra, and a couple of qualifying runs too. So even though I qualified fairly far down the field, I was actually happy with my qualifying time, believe it or not. On the exit of Stavelot, heading up towards Blanchimont, I'm now catching the attention of this Aston Martin here, and he's fairly deep in my slipstream. So at this point I was beginning to sort of think about just allowing him to go past, like not purposely, but if he went for a move, just back out of it. So the sensible thing to do would actually be go for the move on the Kemmel Straight, slipstreaming down, but the Chevrolet up ahead just gets on the power a little bit too aggressively on the exit of the chicane, and I make up one position there, and it just dispatches myself to Capcom. Just leaves me open to clawing onto the back of the Chevrolet up ahead and potentially getting a move there. On the exit of La Source hairpin though, turn 1 here at Spa, trying to get on the power. You can see the Supra's just wheel spinning, still wheel spinning in 4th gear. The Aston Martin gets a run, so he's going to go past. I thought he was going to go on the Kemmel Straight. But he's put a nose up the inside at Radeon, and he's given me a tap, and around I go on lap 3. What an absolute idiot. I was absolutely bluing, and this is the precise reason I don't record my live reaction, because oh man, I don't even want it. I can't repeat the stuff I was saying about this guy. Man, just in the heat of the moment, I was absolutely bluing, furious, seeing red. There was steam coming out of my ears, and once again, it was another one of the situations where I just wanted to quit. So I'm 20 seconds off the guy in 19th, thanks to this idiot deciding that Eau Rouge was the sensible place to go for a move. It of course is not, and we're in the wet, there's no grip. I don't know what he was thinking. Side by side through Eau Rouge and Radeon, it's not what you do. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And if that was real life, that's, you know, I don't want to go there, but if that was a real life incident, he'd probably not race ever again. Someone goes into the pit lane, Capcom, so he's gone in on lap 5, so this is of course a no-stop race, so you're not going into the pits at all, but you can see by the end of the race, because this is where we finished, he was still sitting in the pits. So we essentially came last. The only reason we didn't is because some guy sat in the pits the whole race. But 19th, what a disaster. And I'm going to show you the lobby afterwards, because I did sort of say something. I didn't call him any names, but I did question about what was he thinking, because the thing you want to do is, if you've got to run out of La Source, just stay behind until you're on the Kemmel Straight and slipstream past. It's not hard. But in the lobby afterwards, I finally found who it was, and I just basically went, are you serious, mate? Because that is... Just have a think about it. You don't go side by side in the wet through Eau Rouge. You don't even do it in the dry. And it is honestly the dumbest move I'd seen in a long, long, long time, if not the dumbest. So I was absolutely bluing at this guy, just making sure the replay is saved so I can definitely double check I'm in the right. But I basically schooled him and was just like, wait for the straight and use that for slipstream. It's the risk of going side by side through Eau Rouge and Radeon. He wasn't halfway alongside. I had no idea what he was thinking, but he eventually replied in Japanese, and I took a photo of it and translated it, and he's saying he doesn't understand what I'm saying and I need to speak in Japanese. So, you know, that's fine. We don't all have to speak English, that's all good, but it was just really annoying that I was trying to sort of tell him he's gone wrong, but he had no idea what I was saying. He's gone on completely oblivious, no apology or anything. So I was just so angry. Just, man, so Guess the thing that's left to do now is check the replay and analyse what's gone on here. So coming out of La Source, he's gotten the run on me, which is fair enough, but maybe give me a bump draft or something and slipstream past. He's got a tiny bit of overlap there, and I've just, you know, maybe I did come across a little bit, but he was not halfway alongside, and there's Premier Motorsports in the world that dictates that 50% alongside is what you have to be to warrant space being left for you, and that's kind of what I've gone with, because here in Australia we have supercars, which is 50% alongside. It's quite well documented, so that's what I've gone. But have a look at the point of contact there. It's basically the front overhang in the front, you know, forwards of his front tyres was the portion of the car he had alongside. I don't know. It was just a dumb decision, and we'll have a look from this angle. He actually hits the inside of turn 2 there because of the contact, and he gets himself a penalty. It was only half a second, so it was only a cut track penalty, so no penalty for that. But I suppose that it is what it is. But you know, what will look good though is the cinematic shots. So have a look here. It's just so awkward. He's just got a nose. It's not anything. It's not even his front axle. It's his front bumper. The front splitter was in line with my rear diffuser, and that was the only overlap, and it's completely resulted in myself being turned around, and there's really no saving it. Once you're loose in this wet conditions, that's it. You're gone. There's no getting loose and correcting it and go, oh, that was close, but there's none of that. It's you lose traction at a high-speed zone like that, and you're gone. That's it. Oh, but I'm going to calm it down now. I've gotten that out of my system. He's back in this lobby. I went again. I had to go again because I trundled around in last with 77 points or something like that. He's up in 9th in this lobby here, but I can tell you he's down in 19th. Is my good friend Nitro, who is was once again streaming. Have a look on his channel, and you can see the stream and see the race. This race here that I was in. But we go out again. And the main concern I had is my other race was going pretty well. Off the back of a pretty solid qualifying, if I do say so myself, given the circumstances. We've discussed the reservations I have and the limitations I have with my car choice. So I'm happy. I was happy with my previous qualifying given the car. You know, it's not a great time overall, but in the grand scheme of things, it was pretty good. So we're going to go out for another qualifying session, and my main concern was that I wasn't going to be able to replicate that qualifying lap, because my ultimate time trial best was a 246.7, and I'm pretty sure I got like a 246.8 or 0.9 in the qualifying session previous. So I was a bit concerned I wasn't going to be able to repeat it, and the spread of times in this lobby here is so big that you could have a lot of players going faster than you. So just losing a significant chunk of time somewhere in the lap, it can lead to a loss of 10 positions. I guess by the same token, you've got a lot of players going slower than you, so, you know, I suppose it is what it is and it evens out. Just do a quick lap and you won't suffer any issues. But coming through Lacombe chicane this time, I got a little bit of a wiggle going slightly deep into turn 5. It is the first portion of that chicane there, and it just puts you off for the rest of the sequence. So that's the thing with the wet weather. You spend a lot of time in the corners and they really flow on from one another, more so in the dry, because your acceleration, you know, the portion of the track where you're getting onto the power is so much longer in the wet because of the wheel spin that you get closer and closer to each consecutive corner, even though you're still trying to get on the power from the previous one. So it's really important to get the flow in the wet, because if we have a look on the exit of Pouon, in the dry we'd be 100% throttle by now all the way out to the exit, and then we can easily get the car into a good position for the following. But you can see I'm oversteering by the end of the curb, and that straight was fairly long, but I had to get it pointed over the left hand side to get it back into the right hander of La Fagana chicane. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of flow going on and you have to hook up the corners together. So if you go deep into one corner, you compromise that corner, compromise your exit, and you compromise the following corner. So if you make a tiny mistake, it really compounds and really exponentially adds time onto your lap. And another good example is the bus stop chicane coming up. You go deep into the first part, you have to cut back, and then it makes that second part so much tighter. You have to go so much slower. Because you're slower, you've got a longer acceleration period, and there's more torque going into the car with less downforce because you're going slower. So you can spin out a lot easier, cut a long story short. But this lap, I wasn't quite so pleased with this one compared to my last session. So if you come across the line, I actually get the chicane alright, not too much oversteer, a little bit, but I think the exit of the chicane was a little bit better at least. And you can see the wheel spinning in 4th gear to 47.6. So about 8 or so tenths slower than my previous qualifying time. So it puts me down in 12th, just behind Nitro. So he's got a plus 2.5 seconds to the leader. And that's ultimately where the position's laid out. I start behind Nitro here. I didn't show it, but in the final qualifying results, even if I got my previous qualifying time, I would have started in the same position because the gap to myself and Nitro is about a second, and I was only 8 tenths slower than the previous qualifying time. So even with my previous qualifying time, I would have qualified 2 tenths behind of Nitro. So I'm not too concerned anymore about my qualifying time there. But on the exit of the chicane at the start of the race, once again using that traction control, I'm just out of the slipstream at Nitro, unfortunately. So that's actually going to put me at a bit of a disadvantage. Coming into turn 1, that Mercedes is a lot more stable than the Supra, so that will translate into the wet, and the wet just accentuates the differences between the cars. So you can see Nitro just drives away in the distance, and that is fair game to him. Look on the radar at a car catching, and it looked like he was going to send it up Eau Rouge, but I blocked that one off, and I will happily say I blocked that because I would have anyway. I would say a defend is a reasonable attempt to keep your position, but a block is just aggressive, and I would have aggressively blocked that one there. I'll happily say that because I'm not having a repeat of the previous race. So that is the move. That Chevrolet just did what the Aston Martin should have done in the previous race: slipstream down Kemmel and get me into the braking zone at Lecombe, and I would have just allowed that to happen. There's no point fighting in the wet conditions here, because if you run side by side, as we get a little bit loose heading down the hill, I forgot about that. But I think ultimately we only lost about a second from doing that, and I kept the car pointed in the forwards direction at least, so I didn't lose any positions. Just getting a little bit too confident with my power application on the exit there, heading down into the hairpin. And you can see that we've dropped completely off the pack up ahead, and I find myself down in 18th. But as we head through Pouhon, my attention has turned now to the car behind, and I don't want to fall further back than I already am. But when you exit a Pouhon there, the gap just opens up, and I've broken the slipstream range already. And that is where I sat for 7 laps. So this race was a very quiet race, very boring, I suppose. But Capricorn goes into the pits again, lap 7 this time, which is probably more appropriate to considering a pit stop in this race, even though it's a lot slower, because the tyre wear isn't that bad. You see we're halfway through the race, and I've only got slivers of red on my tyre wear indicators. So we make that move up from Capricorn, who's decided to sit in the pits again, not sure what's going on there, and then a Porsche has made a mistake on the exit of Radeon, and we make our way up into 16th. So we're just picking up the pieces of the cars that fall out of the pack up ahead, and coming into Stavelot of lap 12, we've got another yellow flag out. It's just disappeared there if they recovered in time, but as we come around the corner, oh dear, it's Nitro. He was going well as well. He was going pretty well. So he's made a bit of an error there. Unfortunate for him. Sorry to see that. But he was actually going pretty well, because he started 16th. He was one position ahead of me. And he was fighting up in sort of that battle for sort of 12th and 11th position. So he was in a fairly good position there. But unfortunately, the wet weather, it does and can catch you out, and if you make a mistake in the wet weather, you're probably going to spin out, unfortunately. But ultimately we come home with the 15th. This was the last slot, so there was not anything I can do. 118 points, and you know, that race I put in 13 clean laps. Yes, I made the slight mistake on lap 1, but I didn't spin out, and I probably only lost a second. I finished well over a second behind the car ahead of me, so it would have made zero difference to the final result, having lost the second on the 1 second portion of time on the first lap. So I put in a clean result. I put in fairly consistent race laps. There's not really much more I could have done. The car was not suited for the wet, fairly useless in the wet. You know, I did the best given the conditions, given the car, given the way the car handles in the conditions. So I think I can come away from that one with a smile on my face, I guess. The second race at least, the first race, oh man, what an absolute moron. But I do hope you enjoyed anyway. Do hit the like button if you did, and do subscribe. If you'd like to see more videos from me, leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, constructive criticism as always, very much appreciated. But that's not the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.